Welcome, believers. Welcome, you wonderfully weird people. Welcome to UFO Aliens and Weird Stuff. Right now, today, we are going to be talking about the UFO encounter near Stanford in the Vale. Okay, it's called the Mann family incident. Now, okay, there is something about a lonely country road at night that can make even the ordinary feel uneasy. And that is so true, right? I was travelling on the A30 down, on the way to Padstow, Exeter. It was about midnight. It does feel really eerie if you're the only car on the road, right? The hedgerows seem darker. The silence feels heavier. And the world beyond your headlights becomes a place of guesswork and shadows. Now, it was on such a road in the summer of 1978. Then one family from Gloucestershire claimed to experience something they would never forget. Okay, a strange light in the Oxfordshire sky, a silent country road, and a terrifying gap in time, right? This is the story of the UFO encounter near Stanford in the Vale. And I'll put it behind me, right? Now, it was the evening of Saturday, 19th of June, 1978. Now, you've got to remember this, right? 1978, and I say this all the time. If you're going to come out with a UFO story or an abduction story in the 70s, you were made to feel stupid. All right, remember that, right? Because there are question marks about the story, but remember that. In 1978, if you came out telling a story about alien abductions, you were ridiculed, right? Now, John and Gloria Mann were travelling home to Gloucestershire with their two young daughters, Natasha and Tanya, along with John's sister Frances. Now, it was around 10:15 at night when they passed through the Oxford village of Stanford in the Vale, heading northwest along the A417 towards Farringdon. Right, by then, darkness had already settled over the countryside. The villages were quiet, the roads were mostly empty, and apart from the beam of a car headlight, the family was surrounded by fields, trees, and black summer sky. Right, so just picture it, right? It's very dark, very quiet. Then, just a minute after leaving a village, they saw it. Right, what they saw was a brilliant light in the sky ahead of them. Now, at first, it seemed to be moving in the same direction as their car. Bright, strange, but impossible to ignore. Right? Whatever it was no distant star. It was no ordinary aircraft. That was obvious from the off-go. Right? The light was so unusual that John stopped the car to get out and get a better look. It was then when the sighting became something far stranger. Right, he stared upwards. The light seemed to resolve into a huge circular object. Not just a point of light now, but something structured, something real, something solid, right? Something hovering above them in the darkness. Now, John later described it as a massive saucer-shaped craft. Its underside illuminated by a rim of brilliant coloured lights. And then came the sound. Right? Not the roar of an engine and not the thud of helicopter blades, but something much stranger. Now, a sound he described as a mixture of swishing air and grinding metal. He said it sounded like the metallic screams of train wheels scraping across a track. Now, imagine standing on a dark roadside in rural Oxfordshire, staring up at something huge and glowing above your car. No clear explanation, no familiar shape, just colour, light, and that unnatural sound echoing in the night. Now, according to Gloria, John seemed almost transfixed by it, frozen, basically, mesmerised, as though the sight had placed him in some kind of trance. But then she noticed something even more alarming. The object appeared to be descending, moving towards a nearby field as if intended to land. Now, that was enough for her. Gloria shouted to John that they had to leave, and they had to leave now. Now, the shout seemed to snap him out of whatever state he was in. He jumped back into the car and the family sped away, shaken and frightened by what they had just seen. Now, at this point, the experience was already strange enough. Now, we'll have a quick recap. A bright object, a hovering saucer-like shape, a bizarre metallic sound, a witness who briefly seemed entranced. But the strangest part of the story was to come, right? The Mann family continued their journey, passing through Farringdon, or what they believed should have been at around 10:30. Now, later, they would remember thinking how unusual the quiet town seemed for a Saturday night at 10:30. But when they finally arrived home and checked the time, they were stunned. I mean, it was already after midnight. Somehow, somewhere on that road between Stanford in Vale and home, an entire hour had vanished. No one could account for it, and no one could explain it. Now, either they had somehow made a huge mistake about the time, or something had happened during that journey which none of them could probably remember. Now, missing time. Now, that missing hour would become the most chilling part of the case, because in UFO law, missing time is never just a curious detail, is it? It's a warning sign, a marker that a strange sighting may have been more than just a sighting, that something may have happened during the blank space in memory. And for the Mann family, the ordeal did not end when they arrived home. Exhausted and unsettled, they eventually went to bed. But just as John and Gloria were drifting off to sleep, they heard it again. The same strange noise, the same eerie, swishing, metallic noise that accompanied the object near Stanford in the Vale. This time, they believed it was coming from directly above their house. So, as you would, John rushed to the window. But the moment he looked out, the sound stopped. Above him, there was nothing but stars. So what was out there? What was making the noise? Now, the next evening, John and Gloria returned to their place where they had believed the encounter had happened. If the object had really descended into a field, perhaps there would be evidence, like scorched grass, broken branches, marks on the ground. But in the fading light, they found nothing. So they went back again the following Sunday, this time in full daylight. Again, nothing. Nothing was visible. No landing traces. No physical proof. No sign that anything at all had touched down there. And yet the family's strange experiences continued. In the days after the encounter, members of the family reported developed unusual rashes and bruises. And at the same time, 5-year-old Natasha began having disturbing nightmares. She described seeing strange people with funny eyes who took her parents away. John, too, claimed to suffer with vivid dreams in which he was on board an alien craft being examined by unknown beings. By now, the story was no longer just a roadside UFO sighting. It was becoming something darker, something that seemed to be following them home. Now, after a few weeks, the rashes faded and the nightmares began to pass. But John and Gloria could not let the experience go. The missing hours, the dreams, the strange sounds, the feeling that something had happened to them that night, something buried just beyond their memory. So, eventually, they contacted a UFO group who put them in touch with a therapist willing to try hypnotic regression. And this is where the story takes its most extraordinary turn. Now, under hypnosis, John and Gloria reported beginning to describe events from the missing hour. Now, if their recollections are to be believed, the family had not simply seen a UFO from the road, but they had been taken, lifted into a spacecraft by a beam of bright light. Inside, they encountered humanoid beings wearing tight-fitted hooded suits. These beings, they claimed, identified themselves as the Janos people, aliens searching through a new world after their own planet had become uninhabitable. Now, according to the hypnotic account, the family were examined then given drinks designed to erase their memories before being returned to their car and sent on their way. Now, it is at this point that the story truly enters controversial territory because accounts recovered from hypnosis have always been deeply disputed. To some, they reveal hidden truths. To others, they are unreliable, shaped by suggestion, fear, and an existing cultural idea. And there is another reason the Mann family story raises eyebrows, right? The best known source for the case appears to be a Sunday Mirror article published on the 14th of September 1980, more than 2 years after the event itself. So, 2 years after the incident, the Daily Mirror got hold of the story. Now, the article, titled Close Encounters of an English Kind, presented the case in a highly dramatic style, and some later writers have questioned how much of it was careful reporting and how much of it had been sensationalised, right? Now, we all know that the papers definitely do over-sensationalise stories, but I do believe the crux of the story is true. Now, as we go on, there are other reasons for scepticism. By 1978, stories of UFO encounters involving lights following cars, missing time, physical marks, nightmares, and hypnotic recovery of alien abduction memories were already well established in popular culture. But that doesn't mean this story didn't happen. I mean, we both know by following the map of weirdness, right? 77 and 78 was a busy year for UFO sightings. So even though, well, I would say that even concretes their story a little bit. The Mann case bears a striking resemblance to the famous Betty and Barney Hill abduction story from the United States in 1961. And there is more curious detail. That same year, Steven Spielberg's Close Encounter of the Third Kind had reached UK cinemas, helping to spark a huge new wave of public interest in UFOs and alien visitations. But again, I don't think that should dismiss the story. So was the Mann's family story a genuine close encounter, a frightening but misinterpreted experience, a case shaped by stress, dreams, media influence and suggestion, or something else entirely? Now, this is what makes the Stanford in the Vale encounter so compelling. Not because it gives us certainty, but because it sits right on the line between mystery and myth. On one side, you have a family who claim to witness something extraordinary on a dark Oxfordshire road, and this UFO believer wants to believe them. I am going to believe them, all right? Because in 1978, if you did report a UFO, you were considered a nutter, right? Now, on the other, you have a story filtered through newspapers and the fevered UFO culture of the late 1970s. So what do you think of the story? There is no hard proof, but there never is. No official investigation that solved it, but there never is. No final answer waiting neatly at the end, but there never is. Only a family, a missing hour, and a strange object in the night sky. And sometimes those are exactly the kind of stories that linger the longest. I love the story. I am going to believe it, especially because they had kids. Did the family truly encounter something not of this world near Stanford in the Vale? Did they lose an hour to fear, confusion and a trick of memory? Definitely not. Or did something happen on that road in June 1978 that they were never fully meant to remember? We may never know. But whatever the truth, the Oxfordshire countryside gained one more strange story that night. A story of lights, silence, fear, and a time that simply disappeared. Now, if you enjoyed this story, subscribe for more eerie British UFO encounters, haunted history, and unexplained mysteries when we stick it on the map of weirdness. Now, thanks for sticking around. I really appreciate it. So what do you think of this story? Do you believe the Mann family? I, for one, do, because I'm a massive UFO fan. And I don't think people make stories up like that, genuinely speaking. I mean, they might make up a story of, oh yeah, I saw a light in the sky, but an abduction? an hour missing, you know, dreams, the children having dreams, all that sort of stuff. So I'm going to say this is true personally. But look, if you know more about this, please drop me a line and let's have a comment on it. Also, if you've got any UK UFO mystery stories that you want to add to the map, please drop me a line on this email address. All right. And I'll add it to the map of weirdness. Thanks very much, and I'll catch you on the next one.